Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Friday, February 7th, 2025, and today's topic will mostly be about drawing more poses with the stick figure method. It'll be a few different things besides that. But before we begin, welcome back if you're returning, and welcome if you're new to the channel. I sketch and post every day, and I use timers to stay focused and to build a habit. I'm going to start a 10-minute timer. So yeah, feel free to use these videos as a way to build a sketching habit or to get some ideas. So I worked on this part of the sketchbook page. I'll link to yesterday's video. Basically, this whole week has been a figure drawing deep dive. There's a lot of videos that sort of connect together. They'll all be in the figure drawing playlist. I'd like to have maybe some close-ups right here of the character's face, maybe like an expression, but not a lot, just a little bit. And maybe right here, just to get into like the different poses, which I'll do on another page, but I wanted to get warmed up and to kind of fill up a bit more of this page. I'll put like maybe a different angle or something right here. Yeah, let's get started. Well, I can decide that I want the figure to be right here, like a full figure to be right here. I'm just going to use a ballpoint pen. You can use a pencil. So just going back to the stick figure, I'm just going to lightly put down this center line here. This is in all the other videos too. It's good to kind of figure out like the proportion. So like a center, and then like that's the middle of that center line. In yesterday's video, I talked about how the main circle, so if you just draw like a circle kind of in the middle there, beneath it where like this middle part is, if you draw a slightly smaller circle, slightly smaller than that, you draw kind of the head, and the space is sort of equal. If you do it lightly enough, you can adjust it when you go in to draw the shapes. So there's different kinds of poses, and I'll go over that. But this is like a standing pose. And then there's also like the front view, 3/4 view, back view, you have a side view, and then you have like foreshortening. And all the poses can be kind of like that. So you have a standing, and then like sitting, then reclining, and then like action. So I already have kind of like 3/4 right here. So maybe like a side view. And so maybe that would be good to kind of go over how you can use the exact same setup right here, because it's standing. You can just do this, and it can either be like a front view or a back view, or like a side or a 3/4, just from the same setup. So for example, if you wanted a side view, I would just set it up just like this. Now I have some other videos in the playlist, the figure drawing, where it's different because there's so many different ways to approach it. And in fact, now that I have the character design, I can skip a lot of stuff just because I already know what the character looks like. But sometimes just for learning and also to practice and stuff, or to get warmed up, it's good to kind of know this kind of thing. This is where the knees would be, right here. Again, I went over this in the previous video, but we're going to make it into a side view. So the idea is that you actually could just use the exact same setup, and then the difference would be, for example, the neck would be kind of at an angle, and then you would want to attach like this is the cranium, and then attach like the face to it, so that the face isn't, so that it looks like a skull from a drawing perspective. That's how you get like a simple skull. Yeah, so the neck is kind of like at that kind of an angle. It's not straight up and down, but like the straight up and down part is kind of the neck muscle, kind of like that. But like, don't get bogged down by the details just yet. The arms, because like I was saying, I don't place it right at the top of that circle. So you can place like a small circle for like the shoulder joint. Like that's the knees right there. The elbows, so the hands are like mid-thigh, so this would be like the thigh. So the arms aren't exactly straight. They're kind of, the in that space there. It's the side view of the arm. And then the legs are kind of the flow, if you will. It's kind of like this. Same with like the back. So it kind of does this kind of thing. I won't go into too much detail for the side view because I want to do other poses. So for stuff like the kind of like the zoomed in, that's what I wanted to get to. And I'll do it kind of quickly. I'm just going to set up like the basic construction. So one thing is I might want to get more detail of the face. So if you have a hard time drawing an exact circle to get the proportion correct, what you might want to do is draw more of a square shape, kind of like this. That could be the brow. It depends on the character, like the style of the character. That could either be the eye line or the brow, or it's whatever. It's up to you. And then this would be like the nose, and then that would be the hairline. And this is like a zoomed in version, so. And then if you drop this line, kind of sort of figure out like the length of the face here. It's about the same from here. It's the third, like 1/3, so 1, 2, 3. So I'm just doing this sort of in an easy way. So it might be easiest to just draw a line like this. And again, that also depends on the style of the character. And you can square off like because this way you can kind of go towards a more rounded look or a more angular look. But I prefer to keep the eyes kind of like this. And that's sort of just for the characters that I draw. And then, yeah, just then you would add around. So this is the actual like face. And then you would just add the rest of the head. Which I kind of like this style because it gives you room to add like the hair and all that. So like the ears, for example, like the widest part of the face will be kind of where the cheekbones are. And then you just kind of add the ears. So just an idea. And it depends on the style of the character. Like I don't mind sort of this somewhat anime style. Maybe for like a quick expression, I'll fit it right here. Like if you're turning the head, it does help to use kind of the Loomis method to get like the different 3/4 view kind of thing. Kind of like this. Like it helps just to get like the skull structure. Zoom in a little bit. So just to have a little bit of expression. And then just sort of do like a quick pose right here. But on this next page, so it's going to be a new page, which can be helpful if you find that starting a new page can be challenging. That's kind of why I like knowing the basics so that I can start a new page pretty easily. So I'm going to date the page. That's the first thing you can do, is put a date on it. And then I'm just going to put more poses. So I'm going to go over the different poses I was just talking about at the beginning of the video. You have the standing pose. I always like to establish like the top and bottom of the pose, and then like you have the middle right there, so that way I can at least get this part going, and that's sort of the basic setup there. And then for standing pose, yeah, you can just kind of add the hips and the shoulders, and I put them kind of in the, not right at the top of these circle things. And then you can, depending on the height, you can figure out where I'll just stick with circles, it's even easier. I like to keep it simple. So that's a standing pose. The back is basically like that, although it's a little different obviously. To do the 3/4, you can do the exact same. Now I can kind of skip all this part because it's standing right next to it, so I can just add this real quick. The 3/4 is basically like that. You would just give it some perspective. Start to like get the kind of like the profile view, kind of get this flow sort of thing going right here. So it just has some perspective. Then we have like sitting. So same thing with sitting. So if we're going to keep stuff at the same proportion, we can figure out like where the bottom and like the top of the head would be. So if we had like right here, so obviously if the character is going to sit, then the proportion would be the same. It's just that they're sitting. So for example, like this. So it's the same parts, but then, so like it's still the same like length here. Now, of course, these the body parts, like they move, but I'm keeping it pretty simple. So can have them sitting somewhere. So that's sitting. I'll go into more detail. This is just to like set up the different kinds of poses to sort of think about and like look for reference, obviously. And then you have like reclining. So if you're wanting to get like the full figure, then if it's reclining, it's good to sort of know like, so you can fit the whole figure in there. But then the proportions are still the same if you're wanting to keep it the same, so that yeah, you can have the figure be doing different things. So that's like a reclining figure. I'm not sure where they're at. On some rocks. Just an example. But one thing I like to do is if I'm just playing around with like the construction, and we'll go into like more detail, is I'll set it up as much as I can, like as much as I feel like, and then I'll just kind of look up some stuff and just combine it. And then the next thing would be like action, which is kind of what we were doing with the swordsman. But with action, a lot of times it's like the gesture that is important, but you can still figure out like how big the figure will be. So we'll keep it kind of similar. So it'll be sort of the same right here. And that's just because it could also be different, but I'm just keeping it sort of the same figure. It's good to kind of know like, okay, we want to fit the whole figure within this space. A lot of times action is gesture, which implies an action. Like let's say somebody jumping. When someone's jumping, maybe it's kind of like this kind of action. So the head could be here, the body here, like the pelvis area, and then we'll have them jump. Maybe this way. Kind of like this. So this way you can get the proportion looking like the same size. So we'll call this action. And then the next thing would be all of this basically, and then of course you have all the different views of the side, the back, using these positions. But then you also have the idea of foreshortening. So for example, let me use this, but like for the foreshortening. So foreshortening implies perspective. So for example, if I place the head right here, but then I make the body smaller, and then like the pelvis area even smaller, kind of like this. Because obviously the foreshortening is coming from the fact that now we're looking at the character from kind of an extreme angle. And so this is a little bit more advanced, obviously. So I would get good at doing this. And if you're just going to kind of copy this pose right here, you'll see that everything is sort of relatively getting smaller. It's not that hard. It's just kind of, it can be like if you're going to add detail and whatnot. So yeah, you'll get this kind of thing. You sort of have to understand perspective. So I would say that the shoulder is like right here. So the arm is kind of coming up. And so you kind of see like the top of the head. So the arm is actually leaning on something, the rocks. Since you're not trying to make it look exactly like that, you can kind of change some stuff up. So it looks like the head is even bigger. So yeah, that's why it's good to sketch out stuff, because especially for stuff like this. Now I'm going to go over this real quick with a darker pen so you can see what's going on. So what's happening is, since we're looking at like the top down view, the important thing is to establish the shoulders right here. And also, once you get this far, like the idea was this, once you get this far, then just focus on this and not worry about the other one and make this look correct. So I'll zoom in and kind of show you how I would deal with it. So you kind of need to know anatomy. So the head is kind of right here. So this is more advanced, obviously. But again, it's not that hard, but like there's kind of need to know a little bit more about perspective, about anatomy, and I wouldn't necessarily go in with a dark pen like immediately. I'm kind of doing that to show you like on camera. So yeah, I would just establish where the elbow is right here. Go off of the drawing and not trying to make it look like that, but like get the feel of it. So you have to know a little bit more about anatomy. What I would do is do the sketch, like work out a sketch like this. Probably put tracing paper if I'm doing it traditionally, or if I were to put this in the computer, then I would just work on it there. You can use shading to kind of make it read a little bit more. So this is, we'll call this one foreshortened. Alright, that'll be it for today's video. I know I went over several different things. Maybe for tomorrow I will add more detail to these and then go from there. But I want to thank you for joining me for our daily sketching routine, and hopefully you come back, and if you like these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it, and until next time, keep on sketching.